extraordinarily important. And the reality of life is that you will be as happy as the least happy member of the family, particularly if it's your own child. So I have been very interested in looking at families and helping families be able to pass that shirt sleeve to shirt sleeve in 3 generations syndrome. So I've got an idea of what I call legacy families, and they are families that remain productive and contributive 4 to 5 generations past the wealth creator. Now, in order to do that, everybody wants a wonderful family. The image that they sort of have is this Norman Rockwellian family sitting around at Thanksgiving, and everybody is smiling, and they're so happy to be a part of that. But unfortunately, the reality of it is that families fall apart. And as I looked at families, I was for many years a psychologist for the Beverly Hills school system. So I certainly didn't have a chance to look at functional families. That was not what the district paid me for. But what I became very much aware of is the families that ended up in my office were not trying to be bad parents, and they were not trying to create dysfunction. They just didn't have a clue about the strategy of a family. Because there are 2 businesses. There's a business of the business, and people pay a lot of attention to the business of the business. And they create mission statements, and they have meetings, and they communicate, and they hold people accountable. But there's a business of the family, too. And you really need to apply that same kind of business strategy to the family if you want to end up with this loving, connected, happy family that is going to be positively functional and contributive. It doesn't happen because you sit back and say, I really would like to have a happy family. So the kind of work that I do is very much directed into what are the strategies, what do families need to learn, what do they need to develop in order for them to become great families. Now, one of the critical aspects of this is what is the wealth of the family. And I'm looking at the human capital account, the intellectual capital account, the financial capital account, and the social capital account. So we have almost like 4 bank accounts. And there's bodies of knowledge in each of these accounts. And these great healthy families are constantly making deposits. Like, for example, under human capital, what is it that you make a deposit with? It means you learn how to be an effective parent or a grandparent. It means that you really understand how to communicate. That means you take communication workshops, you work on open, transparent communication within the family. You deal with conflict. You understand how we resolve conflict. Conflict is not bad. It's the unresolved conflict that is such a problem. You learn about how you collaborate and how you build consensus, and what are the values and the morals and the ethics, and what's the family leadership, and how do we train the next generation. I mean, everything that you do in those areas, you just made a big deposit in human capital. In the intellectual capital account, we look at education and career choices and mentoring and coaching opportunities within the family or outside the family, and how does each generation establish governance. And by that we mean, the rules by which they make decisions. The senior generation, say mother and father, it may look to the next generation like it's a one-shot decision maker. Now usually, no matter if we've got a powerful male or a powerful female, there's usually some collaboration, but it really looks like one primary leadership style. The next generation can't have that style, because you don't let a brother and a sister get in your face the same way you will let a parent. So next generation, we have to have consensus building and collaboration. So there's a whole process, and then we have to make our rules. The governance is, how does generation 2, for example, decide who makes decisions, how, under what conditions, who takes leadership in what areas. And in generation 3, each generation has to have their own set of governance rules. And then we have to have sort of a governance structure on the extended family. How do these collective and collaborative decisions get made? That's all part of intellectual. Financial is very important. In financial families, I'm concerned with how you make money, how you manage it, how you invest it, how you teach that next generation to be responsible stewards of wealth. That's a huge error that we seem to be making in terms of wealth transfer. You wouldn't throw the keys of the car to the Corvette to the 4-year-old and say, drive away. Well, then how do you think you can pass big assets down to the next generation without having educated them, having them had some experience training them in how to manage those assets? So financial parenting is a big part of that financial account, and the psychology of money. What does money mean to you, and all the family business issues. All of that is part of everything you learn. You just made a deposit in financial capital, and finally social capital. What is the philanthropic activities of the family? And all great families have that. Whether it's a family foundation, a donor-advised fund, volunteerism, checkbook writing, but somehow or other these families all say it's our obligation to make the world a better place. So we've got these 4 capital accounts that these great families are continually looking to build and develop. Now the process, there's some definite structure that these families create. They develop a family constitution, which has a written strategic plan and a mission vision statement that is articulated, and then we develop strategies. I want to be a loving, connected family. If that's what the mission statement says, that's great. But now the next step is, okay, what are we doing this year that would be loving and connected? And what is the role that each person has to do? And at the end of the year, at the next family meeting, how do we hold you accountable? So you set up these standards of the expectations and accountability. These families have a wealth plan. If they have a family business, they have a family business policy handbook, which they have articulated and written down, who gets employed, under what conditions, what's compensation, what's the relationship of the family to the community, how do decisions get made within the family structure. All the family business policies are in that. They have shared asset agreements, which each shared asset has its own set of shared asset agreements, which provide for getting out. How do I get out of this shared asset and still be part of the family? If we have that all decided before there's a problem, then it's just a process that we kind of trigger. These families have family banks, which kind of support the entrepreneurship, the increasing the financial capital of the family. These are just some of the, they have formalized family meetings. You can't have a business without having meetings and without connecting. And so these families, do have family meetings. And these are just some of the structures. And when you put these in place and develop strategies, you're going to have a much better chance of having this wonderful, loving, connected, functional family that everybody wants to have, particularly as we move out generationally. What it looks like when you have a successful legacy family is you see each person in that family self-actualize to their highest degree. So they are engaged, they are passionate about what they are doing, they are feeling good about themselves. Everyone can be doing different things and being respected. It's not the person who's the great money maker. It's not the one who went to Wall Street. It could be the teacher. It could be the dancer. It could be a handicapped child who has developed a talent to do something. That's when we're looking at how we define success. Success is a very elusive concept, but it gets defined individually for each family member. So what would success look like, and how have we helped our families achieve this success? At that particular point, you can look around and you say, I've really done a good job. I've created this solid foundation for the continuation of a legacy family.